Splash of magic. It was the first week of the summer holidays when Max and Eli, two adventurous brothers, packed their bags for a trip to their grandfather's cottage. Every summer, their parents would send them off to spend time with grandfather, who lived in a picturesque countryside village. The brothers loved these trips because grandfather's cottage was unlike any place they had ever visited. The house sat at the edge of a vast garden, with acres of open land that seemed to stretch out endlessly. The garden itself was full of color and life, with flowers of every imaginable hue, fruit trees hanging heavy with ripe fruits, and shrubs that smelled sweet in the warm summer air. But the real magic of the place lay in its animals. Grandfather had a very unique way of growing animals. It wasn't like a typical farm, with barnyards and fences. No, grandfather's animals roamed freely around his property, living in harmony with nature. Each animal had a special place in the grand design of the garden. The chickens strutted proudly through the flower beds, while the goats grazed peacefully beside the fruit trees. The ducks waded in the ponds, and the rabbits hopped around the bushes. Max and Eli had always been fascinated by the animals, and this summer, they were determined to explore every inch of the land, discovering more secrets hidden within their grandfather's enchanted garden. The first day of their visit was spent exploring the garden. Grandfather had given them a map of the property, but it was more of a guide to the wonders they might find rather than a true representation of the land. As they wandered, Max and Eli saw the familiar animals. The old brown horse named Gus, who liked to graze in the meadow. The two mischievous goats, Juno and Clover, who were always trying to steal fruits from the trees. And the flock of geese that honked loudly whenever anyone got too close to their pond. However, there was one animal that had always intrigued them, an old, wise tortoise named Jasper, who lived in the farthest corner of the property, near a quiet, secluded pond. Jasper had seen many years come and go, and the brothers had often heard stories about him. Grandfather would tell them that Jasper could answer any question if you asked in the right way, but they had yet to figure out what the right way was. The boys spent hours wandering, playing, and observing the animals. Eventually, they returned to the house for dinner, where grandfather regaled them with tales of his youth. But their minds kept drifting back to the animals, their curiosity piqued by the strange, magical world they had discovered. The following morning, after breakfast, Max and Eli decided to go back to the garden. They were eager to see the animals again and, this time, to spend time with them. As they strolled through the garden, they spotted a small, secluded pond tucked behind a thicket of trees. The water was crystal clear, reflecting the soft blue sky above. "Let's swim," Eli suggested, his eyes lighting up at the idea. He had always loved the water. Max hesitated for a moment, but then nodded in agreement. It looked so refreshing. The boys quickly stripped down to their swimsuits and waded into the cool water. They splashed around for a while, enjoying the peacefulness of the pond. The sunlight filtered through the trees, creating dappled patterns on the water's surface, and the only sounds were the gentle ripples of the pond and the occasional chirp of birds. As they swam, they suddenly felt a cool mist falling over their heads. At first, they thought it was just the water splashing from their playful movements, but the mist continued. The brothers looked up, startled, and saw something they couldn't believe. Standing on the edge of the pond, with his trunk raised high, was an elephant. It was a magnificent creature with gray skin that glistened in the sunlight. The elephant was calmly sprinkling water from its trunk, sending a gentle shower over the brothers. "An elephant?" Max gasped, his mouth agape. "I've never seen an elephant here before," Eli exclaimed, equally stunned. Grandfather had never mentioned anything about an elephant on his property, and yet here it was, right in front of them, calmly playing with the boys. The elephant, sensing their surprise, gave them an affectionate nudge with its trunk, as if to say hello. For a few moments, neither of the boys could move, frozen in wonder. It was as if the elephant had come out of nowhere, yet its presence felt entirely natural, as if it had always belonged here. The elephant made a playful noise, and the brothers laughed, their initial shock fading. "What's your name?" Max asked, speaking to the elephant as though it were a friendly neighbor. The elephant gave a soft rumble in response, and Eli decided to name him Splash because of the way he had sprayed them with water. The brothers spent the rest of the afternoon with Splash, playing in the pond and watching as the elephant wandered around the garden, visiting other animals. The two boys followed, laughing and chatting, as Splash gently interacted with the goats, the ducks, and even the rabbits. It was as if Splash had been living there for years, part of the same magical world the brothers had always known. As the days went on, Max and Eli found that their time with the animals was filled with wonders. They spent each day exploring different parts of the property, interacting with the animals, and discovering new parts of the garden they had never noticed before. They found that there was a hidden grove where wildflowers grew in abundance, and in the mornings, the air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming jasmine. They stumbled upon a tree that was older than any they had ever seen, with a massive trunk that twisted and turned in strange patterns. Grandfather had told them that the tree was as old as the cottage itself, and it was said to have a special connection to the creatures of the garden. But no animal was more extraordinary than Splash. The elephant had become a part of their everyday lives. He was gentle and playful, always ready to interact with the boys. Splash would lead them through the garden, and they would follow him as he explored the hidden corners of the land. One morning, as the sun rose and the air was still cool, the brothers woke early and ventured to the pond to meet Splash. They found the elephant standing by the water, his trunk lowered to drink from the pond. The quiet moment felt magical, as if the entire world had paused to appreciate the beauty of the moment. "Do you think Splash will stay forever?" Eli asked, his voice full of wonder. Max smiled, watching the elephant drink from the pond. "I think he's always been here, just waiting for us to find him." Before they knew it, the summer was coming to an end, and Max and Eli had to prepare to leave. The thought of leaving the magical world of their grandfather's cottage was hard to bear. They had spent every day discovering new secrets, playing with animals, and living in the peaceful harmony of nature. On their last day, Grandfather took them on a walk through the garden one final time. The animals were out in full force, greeting them with their usual warmth. Gus the horse nuzzled Max's shoulder, while the goats bleated happily from the meadow. When they reached the pond, they saw Splash waiting for them. The elephant seemed to sense that it was time for the brothers to leave, and he lowered his trunk in a silent farewell. The boys approached him, their hearts heavy with the thought of saying goodbye. "We'll miss you, Splash," Max said softly, stroking the elephant's rough skin. Eli added, "We'll never forget our summer with you." Splash gave them a final splash of water, as if to say, "Until next time." With a bittersweet smile, the boys waved goodbye to the animals and began the journey back to the cottage. Their memories of the summer would stay with them forever, and the magic of the enchanted garden, along with the kind and playful elephant named Splash, would live on in their hearts for years to come. Years later, when Max and Eli had grown older, they often found themselves reminiscing about their time at Grandfather's cottage. They remembered the peaceful days spent with the animals, the magic of the garden, and the extraordinary elephant that had once appeared to them from out of nowhere. And though they never saw Splash again, they knew that the garden would always be there, waiting for the next generation of curious children to discover its secrets. Max and Eli never forgot those days in their grandfather's garden. They had learned that magic was not something you could see in books or movies. It was something that lived in the hearts of those who believed in it. The enchanted garden was a place where dreams came true, and for those who were lucky enough to visit, it would always be a part of them, no matter how far away they traveled.